everybody, and welcome to another ASMR video here on the channel. I find doing the ASMR thing really weird. I'm just like swaying. Anyways, today, as you can tell by the title, we're back with another ASMR conspiracy theories video. This one is slightly different. It's not your typical, like, relatively controversial theories like flat Earth and, you know, the death of Kennedy and things like that. Really, I've got an article and it's like 20 conspiracy theories and myths about video games. And we haven't really done, off the top of my head, I don't think we've done anything that's kind of like a broad thing. Usually it's like a specific event or belief. So I think planned, if I remember on my document, I've got this one and I've got a sports one planned, but I'm wondering if maybe I should go specifically into like different sports, but let me know. So yeah, that's what we've got on Monday. There will be, I think, a review for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which I'm going to watch tomorrow, and then the following Thursday we've got hopefully something very exciting for the channel that's in the works, and it is going to be something that is a first for All Sorts ASMR, but we'll see if I can get it done by then. But yeah, I reckon, without further ado, let's get into these conspiracy theories and myths about video games. So, number 1, 4chan and Majora's Mask. Of course, we can thank 4chan for the origin story behind the Legend of the Haunted Majora's Mask cartridge. One 4chan user posted a story about how he came into possession of a blank Nintendo 64 cartridge with Majora's Mask written across it in Sharpie. The same user then posted photos and YouTube footage corroborating his story. Viewers discovered a completely effed up version of the beloved Zelda title thanks to the above footage. A save file simply entitled Ben was already on the cartridge, even though the user had never played the title before. That's easy enough to fake, but here's where it gets weird. Ignoring the save file, the user started a new game. No sooner had he begun his adventure when he noticed that all of the NPCs, that's non-playable characters, would refer to him as Ben. Weird, but nothing as definitive as being a haunted title. Probably just a glitch, right? The user deleted the Ben file and began a new save file. The haunted cartridge decided F that and began behaving like something straight out of the X-Files. The game began acting erratic. Music would play backwards for no reason, and his character was followed by a statue of the game's main character. Somehow, the Ben file was mysteriously restored with a second, more pants-shittingly ominous save file. The second file was simply titled Drowned. Now there were 2 save files the user didn't create, and every time he played after their appearance, his character would simply die. And the messages, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" would appear on screen. Why, this is a video game. That's literally freaked me out. Like, I'm like looking around now, like, why do I feel like a game's gonna come and kill me? That is, if that's not fake, that is super, super creepy. It could just be like, I reckon some like game developers having a laugh, isn't he? And has just made like a dodgy Majora's Mask. Next one. Why is a 10-year-old running around unsupervised? Pokemon is a title that seems to be steeped in historical conspiracies. Pokemon Red and Blue was a massive success for Nintendo, but between training your Charizard, did anyone bother to ask, where the hell are the adults in this game? As Ash, you travel across Kanto with deadly, barely controllable wild animals crammed into questionable living conditions. That's actually so true when you break down what Pokemon is, basically enslaving creatures for mankind's benefit. But we love it though, don't we? The larger question of where all the male adults have disappeared to lends credence to the theory that Pokemon actually takes place at the end of a large-scale global war, which has forced several changes in the world of the Pokemon Society. One of the biggest clues to support this theory is that both Ash and his rival Gary have no male parent figure throughout the game. The trainers who send their winnings back home are all children or very young. Cops and nurses are all female, and any men you encounter are criminally minded Team Rocket. Another large clue is in the Vermilion City gym leader Lieutenant Surge, a clearly damaged veteran. Adding more legitimacy to this theory, right before you battle Surge, Surge states you won't live long in combat, and my electric Pokemon saved me during the war, alluding to both a past conflict and possibly a current war Ash may be forced to participate in. Well, there we go. I've seen a theory that everything that happens all just happens in Ash's mind, and he's actually in like a coma, and in order to like cope with his trauma and whatnot, his brain like completely makes up Pikachu, and he's never really had like a father figure, so that's why there's not many men in the Pokemon world, because he's just used to being around women type thing. So mine's a bit more morbid. The next theory: Squall is actually dead for the second half of Final Fantasy. Oh, I don't know my Roman numerals. VIII. Is that 8? I think that might be 8. Final Fantasy VII and V. Yeah, I think Final Fantasy 7 and 8 were two of the most formative titles people of a certain age can point to as the reason modern FF titles may fall short in terms of characterization and narrative. Squall was the highly popular protagonist of Final Fantasy VIII, and one prevailing conspiratorial myth is that Squall is actually a ghost. At the end of Disc 1, Squall is impaled by a shard of ice while fighting a main boss, Edia. Squall comes to at the beginning of Disc 2 with no wounds, and not a single other character brings up the fact that he was, killed. Up until this point, the title is a fantasy game rooted in some bedrock of realism, and that goes right out of the window after Squall gets gutted and magically resurrected. Some hold to the theory that Squall actually dies from his wounds at the end of Disc 1. The entire remainder of the game is Squall's dream as he passes away. This would explain why the game has such an increased fantasy tone after Squall's battle. A life flashing before his eyes montage reveals the above image of Squall, minus a face which reinforces the hypothesis that Squall didn't survive, and the rest of the game is either a playable coma or a loop of Squall's last moments of fantasy before death. A playable coma, what a lovely phrase. This article is so hilariously written. And that's my stomach. Lovely. When it's referring to images, I can't actually see the images because I'm on airplane mode because I didn't want the mic to pick anything up. Okay, next, a theory I'm very familiar with. Lavender Town Suicide Spike. Back in 1996, Pokemon Red and Green was slotted in nearly everyone's Game Boy around the world. Ironically enough, the Japanese weren't a part of that statistic. When the game first dropped in Japan, it was supposedly linked to a massive spike in child suicides and illness. Children from the ages of 7 to 12 were either falling sick or taking their own lives outright. The most bizarre thing about the incident was the children did not fall ill or commit suicide until they reached Lavender Town. Many think the town's score was the cause of the ailments. The town's specific music caused nausea and eventually suicidal tendencies in children. The music was eventually changed before it was shipped abroad. The above YouTube clip is the original score from the Japanese version of the game. The above clip is taken from the original suicide-inducing version of the game. I can't remember how this was disproved or not, but I'm pretty sure it was disproved. Next theory, nuclear proliferation is adorable, it turns out. Braid is deceptively simple in its nature, in its narrative. Boy sees girl, boy tries to rescue girl, boy wears a private school uniform the entire time. The twist comes at the end when we're not so sure that he's such a great guy, and the bad guy the girl is running away from might just be you. For some, Braid ends with the player catching the girl, who just as they finally meet, sets off a bomb a la Terminator 2. The screen goes bright and most believe that this is an anti-nuclear war message. Off-screen, a voice intones, "Now we are all sons of female dogs." A quote that can be directly tied to Kenneth Bainbridge, one of the heads of the Trinity atomic bomb tests. Interesting. The next theory is about Killswitch. Killswitch is a game that was supposedly created by Soviet gaming company Carvina Corporation in 1989. We say supposedly because extremely limited copies of the game were never produced. While gamers in the States were playing Mega Man 2, Russians were playing one of the earliest iterations of a survival horror title. You were given the choice between a young girl or an invisible demon as playable characters. Players were meant to navigate a gold mine, but here was the rub. Upon beating the game, the entire thing would self-delete on your hard drive. An intact copy of the game turned up on eBay where it fetched $733,000 by a Japanese man named Yamamoto Ryuichi. Ryuichi wanted to document his playthrough of the game on YouTube, but the only video Ryuichi posted was of his gentle weeping while staring at his computer screen. This next one is titled, "So, you guys are Nazis in real life." When The Legend of Zelda dropped in 1986, it found itself mired in controversy thanks to the inclusion of the third dungeon map. Go ahead and take a look. Looks pretty familiar, right? The map was shaped like a swastika. Oops. Parents demanded the game be pulled. While the dungeon is shaped like a swastika, it's not the Nazi one. This swastika faces to the right and is actually an ancient symbol of peace in Hindu mythology. The makers of Zelda were, it turns out, only wishing players good luck. Blow Me. That's the title of the next one. While the instruction booklet that came with every NES title explicitly instructed against blowing into the game cartridge, that didn't stop the collective youth market of the 80s from blasting the connector pins like a fluffer auditioning for the XXX remake of Gravity. Kids around the world swore that this was the only way to fix a cartridge that was behaving like a lazy speak and spell. The reason behind all the huffing and puffing had to do with the front-loading design of the NES console and connector pins from console to cartridge not lining up. Blowing in your console usually came with an excess of moisture from all that spit in your mouth. Lovely. The moisture enabled the pins to align, and thus your spitty copy of Duck Hunt ended up working. Duck Hunt, if you say that too quickly, sounds a bit dodgy. It was a short-sighted win though. Over the years, blow damage degraded games something got sorted out with the Super Nintendo's top-loading design. The Mark of the Beast. Way back in 1981, 19-year-old Jeff Daly died of a heart attack soon after posting a score of 16,660 in the arcade game Berserk. 1 year later, 18-year-old Peter Bukowski also died of a heart attack moments after cracking the Berserk top 10 high score list twice in 15 minutes. Coincidence? Some point to the Mark of the Beast 666 being in the score must be proof that Satan had a hand in the demise of the two teenagers. Now, I'd like to throw a counterpoint out there. Doesn't necessarily... that portion doesn't tell us how long they spent trying to be that high score. They each might have spent 3 days without food or drink, and then the shock of actually beating it just was too much for their hearts. Did you ever think of that? No, you didn't. Well, there you go. I've debunked it for you. Fallout 3 predicts the future. Bethesda's Fallout 3 was a marvellous post-apocalyptic RPG, but was it also capable of telling the future? Throughout the game, players pick up radio signals in the wasteland of former Washington, D.C. The function of the radio serves as a means of broadcasting old pop songs, updating missions, and generally working to build a fuller game world. The device also predicts the future. Occasionally, a series of numbers, which sounds like Morse code, will be broadcast through your Pep Boy. The story goes that the code predicted the Deepwater Horizon oil rig disaster down to the day and hour. Next, Lara Croft is totally naked. One of the most prevailing urban legends surrounding video games was the famously non-existent Lara Croft nude code. Rumours began circulating that a Tomb Raider nude code existed when the first title dropped way back on PlayStation 1. You can imagine that legions of prepubescent boys were scouring every source known to man to find out if there was any truth to the rumours. The internet was flooded with fake codes, but that's all they were. Fake. No official nude code exists, but head over to 4chan and search Lara Croft nude and see what you get. There are endless mods to get Lara into her birthday suit. On an unrelated note, if anyone has a PlayStation 1 and a copy of Lara Croft, if you want to just leave a comment and we can sort something out, thanks. Next one. New Mexico is home to more than just Area 51. In September 1983, about 10 million unwanted Atari game cartridges showed up at the Alamogordo landfill in New Mexico. A little side note quickly, I'm now really conscious of the way I pronounce things because I had a very, very angry man who's obviously a very, very big fan of Tupac. Apparently he got very irate at the fact that I was pronouncing it Tupac and not Tupac, and then I pronounced one of his song names wrong. Like the comment made me laugh. It was like, oh, I was really looking forward to this video, but then you pronounced why don't you actually do some research on how to pronounce things rather than just saying random sounds out of your mouth? It's like, whoa, chill out, dude. The guy's dead. He's not gonna kiss you. Okay, anyway, sorry. I'm just, every time I pronounce something terribly, I just think back to that. Anyway, the reason behind the video game Massgrave, well, it's historical record that in 1982, Atari's earnings in the fourth quarter were, well, abysmal. Atari had banked on two massive blockbusters to deliver them out of the red, a home version of Pac-Man, and the infamous E.T. movie adaptation. 5 million copies of each title were returned to Atari by disgruntled fans. And what else are you supposed to do with 10 million unwanted game cartridges? Get a steamroller to crush the cartridges and then pave the whole thing over with concrete. Jeremy Bennett, the game's art director, says that was intentional. Eventually we settled on a huge mechanical device with a delicate robotic figure dangling out of it, which successfully conveys both GLaDOS's raw power and her femininity. Some people think she looks more like a woman who has been bound and gagged. Okay, interesting. If I can, remember to put all the images in, I will try and put the images in, of course. GTA 5 and the Black Dahlia. Maybe you've stumbled across the WhoKilledLenoraJohnson.com website in GTA 5. The site is filled with fake newspaper stories and a trail of breadcrumbs that lead players to an in-game murder mystery. The murder surrounding Lenora Johnson, a fictional actress killed during the golden age of Vinewood cinema, is based on the very real and very famous Black Dahlia case in 1940s Hollywood. On one page of the site, players are directed to another murder in Los Santos. The murder of Jolene Cranley Evans is strewn with clues on where to find Evans's ghost on Mount Gordo. At 11 PM, players will find a ghost in the distance, and she looks like that terrifying ghoul up there. Again, if I remember, I'll put it on screen for you. She disappears just after midnight. The mystery figures of Hell Valley. My brother's having a great time again upstairs, of course. It's only 1:45 in the morning. Cheers, mate. While Super Mario Galaxy 2 has been out for the better part of 3 years, probably longer now, that doesn't make it any less devoid of extra creepy shit hidden in the game. In the level Shiverburn Galaxy, you can catch 3 figures on the ridge of a mountain looking down at you. Anywhere on that level, if you look up and to the left, you will find the same 3 hollow-eyed figures watching you. Curious gamers began digging in the game files of Super Mario Galaxy 2 and discovered that the sky art for that area is called Beyond Hell Valley. Super Mario Galaxy 2 has no level named Hell Valley, and as for the figures themselves, the game files refer to them as Hell Valley trees. Take a look at the video above, those don't look like any trees we know the name of. Next one is titled Saddam Hussein and Guidance Chips for a WMD. In late 2000, reports emerged that formerly not dead Iraqi President Saddam Hussein was stockpiling PS2 consoles. The PS2 had been released earlier that fall, and a huge number of consoles had made their way to Iraq. More than 4,000 consoles had made their way overseas in a few scant months. The system seemed harmless, but then reports surfaced that Saddam Hussein was stockpiling the consoles for their CPU chips. The reason? The myth has something to do with making the chips work together as a strung-together missile guidance system. After the initial freak-out, people realised that yes, you could marry all those 128-bit processors together, but the software needed for something like a missile guidance system was so far beyond anything Iraq was capable of developing that it was better to just let him get invaded. The third last one is titled The Madden Curse. When Electronic Arts began featuring NFL stars as their cover athletes in the early 2000s, star players were lining up to get a slice of that free advertising. That is, of course, until featured cover stars began getting injured. For the next several years, every player that was featured on the cover got injured the following season. Sure, football is an inherently violent sport, and maybe we can leave it at that, but most NFL players are more superstitious than gypsies at a swap meet. What a comparison. And they'd probably be quicker agreeing with the curse than most. Second to last one is titled Hail Satan? Another one from Blizzard and World of Warcraft. This is one of the most overt displays of Satan-flavoured weirdness found in a recent game. After starting a human character, the first town you will enter is a small place called a small, normally empty house, players can find 6 little kids that appear at 7 AM on the game's server clock. Stranger still is the 6 little kids will stand in the shape of a pentagram as they move from Goldshear to Stormwind. I'm getting scared again just before bedtime. While players have even reported hearing high-pitched wails and screaming "you will die" to music that isn't found anywhere else in the game. Yeah, that's really creepy. Lovely and creepy. And the final theory we've got for you this evening is government mind control and weaponized epilepsy. Polybius was an arcade cabinet was released in incredibly limited numbers in the early 80s. While that's not strange on its own, what was bizarre was how the game was only released in a few neighbourhoods in the surrounding areas of suburban Portland, Oregon. Polybius would cause players to suffer vivid nightmares and in some cases suicidal tendencies. Thanks to a violently powerful strobe effect in the cabinet, players would also find themselves fighting epileptic seizures. Polybius vanished and has retired to the realm of conspiracy. Some believe the cabinet was released by the DARPA, the same government agency behind MKUltra and those killer robot videos you see all over YouTube, to test response to psychoactive machines. Even stranger are reports that once a week men dressed in black would come through and collect the data stored on the game's memory. You can watch the video above to see what Polybius looks like with some of the command options available to arcade owners, government agents. And once more, if I remember to find that footage, I will put it in for your viewing pleasure. That was actually a lot of fun to read through. That article was more comedic than I thought it was going to be, and it's sort of given me an idea to sort of look into more articles and pieces online of that sort of tone, because I find them really entertaining to go through and make jokes of my own about type thing. But I never know if like ASMR is the place to be funny, because I do watch a few funny ASMR artists and I do find myself not that I'm calling myself funny at all. Comedy is subjective. But a few funny ASMR artists I watch, they'll actually like make me laugh, and then I just find like the falling asleep process is just restarted, and then I'm like, oh, so then I'll just like turn them off and put on a more serious ASMR video to fall asleep. But anyways, I'm waffling now. I really hope you found these video game conspiracy theories interesting, and thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, then please do give it a like and subscribe if you're new. As I said earlier, keep your eyes peeled for that video on Thursday and what might be in the beginning of the video, but it's going to be a video that you all will like. It's a part 2 to a video that's been pretty successful on my channel, let's say that. But anyways guys, that's going to do it for this video. So, until the next one guys,